We are absolutely flooded every single day with marketing messages, thousands of them. How do we even begin to decide which brands we can trust? Which ones are actually worth our loyalty? I think it's a question we all kind of wrestle with.
Yeah, totally.
And that's what we're going to dig into today, how smart brands are really breaking through all of that noise to build those genuine connections. We're talking authentic storytelling and how it builds brand loyalty.
It is so interesting to me how picky consumers are getting these days. Like, they're looking way beyond the surface now. I think they want brands that really match their values, and offer something more than just a product.
Exactly. It's not just about buying a thing anymore.
Hmm.
And to help us really, map this whole world of brand loyalty, we are turning to Dr. Pooyan Ghamari.
Interesting.
So he's an economist, but not just that. He also founded the Aland platform, and he has all this experience in real estate, finance, and tech.
Wow. That's quite the resume.
It really is. We're going to be diving into his article called Building Brand Loyalty Through Authentic Storytelling. And what really caught my eye was how Dr. Ghamari connects all these different areas, to understand how brands are working to gain our trust in this world that just never stops changing.
Yeah. I can see how his experience across all those different fields would give him a really unique perspective on how the economy and consumer behavior kind of like bump into each other, which I think is key when we're talking about brand loyalty.
Exactly. And one thing that really hit me in Dr. Ghamari's article is how he talks about trust being so fragile, especially in these really volatile markets like real estate.
Yeah.
It's just not enough for a brand to say, hey, we're trustworthy. They actually have to prove it.
Right. Absolutely. And that's where I think storytelling really comes into play, right? It's about going beyond just like the numbers and the facts and actually connecting with people on a deeper level.
Yeah, you're telling a story. He makes this point that the entire landscape of brand loyalty has totally shifted. Like, gone are the days of, just a jingle that gets stuck in your head or these surface level marketing things. Consumers and even investors are looking for way more.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's like they're interviewing the brands now, like, who are you and why should I care? Especially in markets that are all over the place, like real estate or, global finance. They want something solid to hold on to.
Right. They want to know the why. And that's where this idea of authentic storytelling really comes in. Dr. Ghamari actually lays out 3 key economic values of brand storytelling. So the first one, it strengthens trust. Think about it. When a company is open and honest about the challenges they faced and like the strategic choices they've made, it shows a level of transparency that I think automatically builds confidence.
Yeah, like they're letting you in behind the scenes a bit. It's like that, especially in areas like real estate and global finance, where, like you said, things are constantly changing. Trust can be totally blown away with one market swing or a sudden change in regulations, but I can see how a good story, told well, can help bridge that gap by showing how a brand navigated those rough waters and came out on top.
Right. It's like you're peeking behind the curtain and seeing the wizard, so to speak.
Yeah.
But in a good way. His second point is that storytelling is this powerful tool for standing out, for differentiation, especially in markets that are already so crowded. We are all fighting for attention out here. So how do brands make themselves stand out from the crowd?
Right. How do you cut through all the noise? Well, I think it's by communicating your values, like what you stand for, and telling your story in a way that your audience is actually going to vibe with. Think about luxury real estate in places like Dubai, Singapore, or Zurich. Just showing off a beautiful property isn't enough anymore. I mean, you've got to weave a narrative that speaks to what the buyer wants their life to look like, What does their dream life look like? What experiences are they looking for?
It's painting a picture of that lifestyle, not just trying to make a sale. And this takes us to Ghamari's third point, which I thought was really interesting. It's about leveraging behavioral economics to create that sense of loyalty. It's not just about pure logic or making a rational choice. Our emotions play a huge role in what we decide to buy or invest in. And I think a story that can grab you on that emotional level, well, it just creates a way stronger bond with the consumer.
It's like you're tapping into what makes people tick on a subconscious level, right? The psychology of it all.
Yeah.
We like to think we make decisions based on logic and facts, but so much of it is driven by how we feel. A story that really resonates with you emotionally can bypass all those rational arguments and hit you right in the feels.
Yeah, exactly. Now let's get into the how-to of crafting these authentic narratives. Dr. Ghamari outlines 4 main ingredients.
Sure.
First up, clarity of purpose. Why does this organization even exist in the first place? Beyond just turning a profit. What's their mission? What kind of impact are they aiming for?
Okay, I like this.
Yeah, it's the why.
Right. And he uses his own company as an example, the ALIN platform.
Yeah.
Their whole reason for being is to make sustainable economic development happen. And that purpose is baked into everything they do, how they communicate with investors, how they work with clients, even how they interact with policymakers. It's like having a bigger mission that goes beyond just making money.
And then that purpose has to be something that you communicate in a way that your specific audience is going to get. Ghamari talks about how important cultural and contextual relevance is. A message that totally works in one market might need some serious tweaking for another.
Oh, yeah. You see that all the time. What might be super appealing to a buyer in New York City might fall completely flat with someone in Tokyo, right? It's like you have to know the local culture, what the economic situation is like, and then tailor your message so it speaks to them. What are they hoping for? What are they worried about?
So, knowing your audience and speaking their language, both literally and figuratively. His third element is consistency across everything you do. Your brand story needs to be the same, whether it's on your website, social media, marketing materials, or even just like how your employees talk to customers.
Totally. If you're saying you're all about sustainability, but then your actions tell a different story, people are going to see right through that, right? It's like that consistency is what builds trust and shows that your brand story is the real deal.
Actions speak louder than words.
Right.
And the stories you tell, they need to be engaging, but they also need to inspire action. They should show how your product or service can actually solve real problems that your audience is facing.
Especially in fields like global finance or emerging technologies, right? Where there's a lot at stake and investors need to see that something's actually working. It can't just be a nice story. It has to be convincing enough that people are willing to put their money behind it. It's about showing results.
So we've talked about why brand storytelling matters. But what about the how? How do you actually create a narrative that really connects with people and makes them want to take action? Ghamari offers some really interesting thoughts on that.
Well, I think it starts with really understanding your audience. You have to know what their needs are, what they're looking for, what they aspire to. And then it's about crafting a story that connects those needs and aspirations to what your brand stands for, its purpose, and its values.
So like finding that sweet spot where what your brand is all about meets what your audience really cares about.
Yeah, exactly. But it can't just be some fluffy feel-good story. You have to show how your brand is actually making a difference. Like how is it tackling real problems? How is it creating value for your audience? It has to be real.
Okay, I like that. Let's shift gears a bit and talk about how all of this applies to people making decisions, like investors. Ghamari says that storytelling can actually make an asset class more valuable, especially in real estate. That's a pretty interesting concept.
Yeah, I think it is. A good story can really increase what people think a property or a real estate project is worth. Imagine two identical apartment buildings. One has a basic brochure, just the facts. The other one is presented as this vibrant community hub focused on sustainability and social impact. Which one do you think is going to fetch a higher price?
The one with the good story, right?
Oh.
Because it's not just about the building itself, it's about the lifestyle, what it represents.
Exactly. Investors are putting their money into projects that reflect their values, and a strong story can make a project stand out from the competition. There are so many choices out there.
And it's not just about having a good story. It's about sharing it effectively.
Right.
Dr. Ghamari talks about multi-channel engagement, right?
Absolutely. You have to use all the tools you have to reach your audience. Video, podcasts, webinars, social media, even creating these immersive experiences with AR and VR,
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, like imagine being able to take a virtual tour of a development in Dubai or seeing what it's like to live in this totally sustainable community. Those experiences can really grab you emotionally.
It's like bringing the story to life. Dr. Ghamari also talks about how important transparency is when it comes to navigating all those global regulations and immigration policies, especially for people with a lot of money to invest who are looking at international opportunities.
That's key, especially in areas like real estate and finance, where the rules can be super complicated and different everywhere you go. Imagine someone wants to buy a property in another country. They need to know what the laws are, what taxes they'll have to pay, and how the immigration process works. A brand that can clearly explain all that stuff is going to build trust, They're showing they're legit.
It's like being a guide, helping investors through all that complexity. Okay, let's jump to a section in Dr. Ghamari's article that I found super thought-provoking. It's his FAQ section. He answers some really interesting questions that I think a lot of our listeners are probably wondering about too, real-world stuff.
Yeah, these are the questions that investors and just everyday consumers are dealing with. And his take on them is really valuable. He covers so much, like opportunities in emerging markets, how to figure out if a new venture is worth it, even how data analytics play into all of this.
Right. Like, he talks about all these untapped opportunities in second-tier cities and emerging markets, places like Turkey or Malaysia. They often get overlooked, but they have so much potential for growth. But they can be a bit tricky for investors who don't really know the local scene.
Totally. Understand the local culture and how things work there is so important. If you do your research and find brands with stories that resonate in those markets, you can really find some hidden gems. It's about looking beyond the obvious.
And Dr. Ghamari gives advice on how to use storytelling to figure out if a new venture is worth investing in, especially in areas like tech or sustainable development where things change so fast.
He talks about how important it is to look for consistency in what a brand is saying. Do they have a mission that goes beyond just making a profit? And are they actually making a difference? Can you see the impact? When a good story is backed up by real results, that's a good sign that a company is going to be successful in the long run.
And he talks about how important authenticity is in the world of crypto and digital assets, which can feel like the Wild West sometimes.
Yeah, there's so much hype in that space. He argues that telling real stories that highlight how these technologies are actually useful, what the benefits are, that's what separates the legitimate projects from the ones that are just riding the hype wave. You have to cut through the noise and find the ones that are actually building something real.
Dr. Ghamari even looks at how branding and immigration policies connect in global real estate. It's amazing how all these different things are tied together.
It's true. Countries use branding campaigns to attract investors from around the world. They highlight things like lifestyle, business opportunities, and political stability. And at the same time, developers are telling stories about their specific projects. It's fascinating. It's all about attracting that global capital.
And then there's data analytics. It's not just about telling a good story. It's about telling the right story to the right people at the right time. Dr. Ghamari says data can help brands make sure their stories are really hitting the mark.
It's about using data to figure out what's working and what's not, and then adjusting your approach. You want to make sure your story has the biggest impact possible. But it's not about twisting the data to fit your narrative. It's about using it to uncover insights that will help you create a story that's even more authentic and engaging.
It's like having a feedback loop that helps you fine-tune your storytelling.
Exactly. And as we learn more about how people behave and what they want, we can create stories that are even more personalized and relevant.
He also talks about how important sustainability is, especially in real estate. It's not just a trendy word anymore. It's something that investors, regulators, and communities really care about.
If a brand can show that it's truly committed to sustainability with real results to back it up, that's going to build trust and attract people who share those values. It's about showing that your actions are making a positive impact on the world.
And Dr. Ghamari even gets into how central bank policies can affect storytelling in real estate. It might seem niche, but it's actually super relevant. He says brands need to be upfront about how things like interest rates and inflation might impact their projects.
Right. It's about being honest with investors and acknowledging that there are risks and challenges. That kind of transparency actually strengthens the brand's story because it shows they're not trying to hide anything.
It's about being realistic, even when it comes to things that might not be so positive. He also talks about how developers can keep people loyal to their brand even after they've bought a property, which is something a lot of brands struggle with.
It's about creating a community, offering great property management and continuing to tell the story of the development and its impact on the area. You want to build a relationship that lasts beyond the initial purchase.
It's about giving people a sense of belonging and creating a space where residents feel connected to each other and to the brand behind it all. And he looks ahead to what's coming next. He talks about the global trends that are going to shape brand loyalty in the future.
Things like digital transformation, the rise of sustainable finance, and all the changes happening in geopolitics. It's a lot to keep up with. Brands need to be flexible and adapt their stories to stay relevant and connect with their audience in meaningful ways.
He really emphasizes that being able to craft authentic narratives that resonate with these new trends is going to be key for brands to succeed in the future. It's about staying ahead of the curve and understanding how all these changes are going to affect how consumers and investors think and act.
And that's where having a good understanding of economics, technology, and culture is so valuable. It's about seeing the bigger picture and how all these different pieces fit together. You have to be able to anticipate how those trends are going to converge and shape the future of storytelling.
And one of the most interesting things he talks about is real estate tokenization. It has the potential to completely change the industry.
Tokenization could make it possible for way more people to invest in real estate. It could lower the barriers to entry and make it easier to buy and sell. It's pretty exciting. But there are challenges too.
And Dr. Ghamari doesn't shy away from those. He points out that it's still early days for real estate tokenization. He says the key for these platforms is going to be transparency, solid legal frameworks, and of course, great storytelling that showcases the benefits of tokenized real estate. It's about building trust in something new and showing both experienced investors and newcomers why it's a good idea.
It's about educating people, addressing their concerns, and painting a clear picture of how tokenization can change the real estate world for the better.
Dr. Ghamari has given us a lot to think about. He's highlighted how brands are using authentic storytelling to build loyalty, increase value, and navigate a world that's becoming more and more complex every day.
It's clear that storytelling isn't just a marketing trick anymore. It's a way for brands to really connect with people, earn their trust, and inspire them to take action.
So as we wrap up our deep dive, let's think about what all this means for you, the listener. How can you use these insights to make smarter choices as a consumer and maybe even as an investor? I think it comes back to, how do we decide who to trust? We're dealing with so much information all the time, and marketing is everywhere. It feels like you need a filter just to get through the day.
Yeah, it's overwhelming.
So how do we figure out which brands are for real?
Well, I think you have to start by thinking about the brands that you already connect with. What is it about their story that makes you trust them? Why do you pick them over everyone else?
For me, it's a gut feeling, You can just tell when a brand is being authentic.
Yeah.
When it's not just about getting you to buy something, it's like they actually want to build a relationship with you.
Yeah, you're right. It's a feeling. You can see it in how they talk, what they do, how committed they are to their values. Look for the brands that are walking the walk, the ones that are honest about their struggles and their wins.
And it's not just about feeling good. It's about being smart. Dr. Ghamari's ideas really show how understanding the power of storytelling can help you evaluate brands, investments, even how you see the entire economy.
I think as we move more and more into this future with all the digital stuff and sustainable finance and the whole world kind of shifting, being able to spot a real, authentic story is going to be more important than ever. It's like a roadmap, leading you to the brands and the projects and the opportunities that are worth your time, your trust, and your money.
So pay attention to those real stories. They're like a compass in this crazy world. And remember, the best stories are always changing and growing, so be curious, ask questions, keep learning.
Think about what matters to you. What are your values? What kind of impact do you want to see in the world? Let those questions guide your decisions. Find the brands that are out there actually making a difference.
That wraps up our deep dive into authentic storytelling. We hope this gives you some things to think about, whether you're a consumer or an investor or both. Until next time, keep asking those questions. Keep searching for those genuine stories. They're out there.